Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody, welcome to Heel Heat. This is our WWE show for the week. My name is George Coles and let's jump right into it. First off, we have the so-so segments of the night. Basically the segments that are unmemorable, going to be forgotten in a few weeks, and really didn't move the radar at all. First one we had was the Real Americans versus Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. To me, I don't know. It kind of feels like the Real Americans are in a holding pattern. They get pushed a bit, they get knocked back down. They get pushed a bit, they get knocked back down. And the Rey Mysterio Sin Cara pairing just seemed. I know they had paired up in the past, but it seemed too random of a pairing. I just couldn't get into this match, unfortunately. Real Americans do pick up the win. The only thing, I guess, that you would say monumental is Zeb Coulter smacking Jack Swagger, which is going to turn possibly into a Bobby Knight type situation, but who knows. Next thing we want to talk about is the Brad Maddox coming out and introducing Randy Orton, which brings out Dave Bautista, which brings out Lesnar. Of course, we know Bautista won the Royal Rumble, much to no one's excitement. Lesnar announces that he wants to fight one or the other by the end of the night. That'll come into play a little later as we see. But just I don't know, three guys not really great on the mic working at this time. I know Heyman was out there and did a lot of Lesnar's talking for him, but to me, it just seemed like a round peg for a square hole. I didn't think it worked. I think it would have worked better with just Batista and Orton, honestly. Now, coming off of that, we had Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz in the Battle for Cleveland. I don't get it. Miz has absolutely floundered to the point where I'm really starting to question if he's on the list of people to be future endeavored very soon. And that's, what is he, less than 3 years removed from being the main event at WrestleMania. Dolph Ziggler, I have no faith in the WWE's booking of him. Much like I said with the Real Americans, he is so hot and cold that 1 week he's being booked as being a strong championship contender, then next week he's losing to someone that he shouldn't lose to on TV. Ziggler picks up the win here. Again, just something I really... This was a throwaway match, to be honest with you, and it's a shame because you got two guys. Miz, when done right, could be a solid upper mid-card heel. Do I think they forced him in the main event too early? Or they forced him to fit in the main event when he didn't belong? A little bit, yes. And Ziggler, he could be a solid mid-card face. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he could be a world champion. Yes, he could be a world champion. But the way he's booked is not conducive to someone to be a world champion. Much like we're going to talk about the next match with one of the two men. Kofi Kingston versus Alberto Del Rio. Del Rio picks up the win. The thing of it is, the rumor was that they were going to repackage Kofi, give him a better deal, and put him on a serious push. Something we've been hearing for almost 5 years now, that Kofi's going to be in line for a push. Kofi's going to be in line for a push. He's at the point where I'm a fan of Kofi Kingston. I like what he does in the ring. I think he brings a certain enthusiasm. I think he has a certain marketability that he could be marketed to the kids, much like John Cena is, much like Rey Mysterio is. Where they're missing the ball on that, I don't know. But it just feels to me that much like someone like The Miz, much like Dolph Ziggler, much like the Real Americans, and most of the people on this so-so segment, he's just stuck in traction, not going forward or backwards. And Del Rio, obviously, they're pushing to some sort of mini feud with Batista to keep Batista occupied until WrestleMania, I'm guessing. I'm kind of okay with that. I see that. I wish they would have done that before the Royal Rumble and gave Batista something to do, build him up other than 6 days after he debuts, he wins the Royal Rumble. But that's a different story for a different video, which we already put out. And last but not least on the so-so list, we had the 8-woman tag match, the Bellas and the Funkadactyls versus AJ Lee, Tamina, Alicia Fox, and Oksana. You guys have seen the show before. You know how I feel about these clusterfuck matches. Not a fan of them. I like that they gave the Divas a little bit more time than they normally do. The match was of much better quality than what they normally put on, but still, it only progressed one thing, and that was the AJ Lee getting pinned by Cameron. I'm sorry, it's hard to kind of remember their names. Their names are different from Diva. You understand. From Total Divas and on the show, it's hard for me to remember what her name on the show is. Is it Cameron or Naomi? One of the Funkadactyls. I'm sorry. But the way, they could have easily done that on a normal tag match with the Funkadactyls versus AJ and Tamina. Or they could have had a non-title match. Or many other things that wouldn't have drawn out people that have nothing to do with it into the match. I don't know, it's better than it has been, but not as good as it should be. Which is why it fits in this segment perfectly. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into the bad portions of the night. The stuff I just didn't like at all. First is the Wade Barrett Bad News Barrett promo. He's, much like I said before, and I hate to keep using this expression, he's very hot and cold. There's been a couple that were good. I actually think the stuff he did on the Cole and JBL show is better than what's coming off on TV. Overwhelmingly, they've been bad, and this was another bad one. This played only to the crowd in attendance, only to the Cleveland crowd. It's something they could have done during a commercial to rile up the crowd and get them hyped up for a match. But you're playing to America. I understand that you have to, you get your cheap heat by dissing the city that you're in, but it doesn't play to, when you're making fun of Cleveland, Ohio, it doesn't play to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It doesn't play to Miami, Florida. People in Dallas, Texas don't care that you're making fun of Cleveland. And that's what the segment comes off as. A good heel will work that in, much like Edge and Christian used to do. They would make fun of the town they were in, but they would work it into a bigger thing where they were making fun of the people they were wrestling, the town they were in, the fans in general, and it would be a whole package. Well, to me, it just fell really flat. Much like the match that I'm going to talk about next. Fandango versus R-Truth. Now, I know that people are going to question what I'm saying here, but hear my reasoning out before you do. Fandango is the mini Daniel Bryan. And before you go off on a tangent, you say, Daniel Bryan's Daniel Bryan. And the way I see it, Fandango gets such positive reactions all over the country, much like Daniel Bryan. Not on the same level as Daniel Bryan, which is why I said mini Daniel Bryan. However, he continues to be booked in crap like this. R-Truth is never going to be anything but a mid-carder. I'm sorry. I like the guy. I think Ron Killings is a great wrestler. I enjoyed him very much in TNA. I thought they maximized his potential. Since he's been in WWE, other than the heel turn that he had a few years back when he was working with The Miz, he really hasn't excited me. He hasn't brought anything to the table, and I don't think that they want him to bring anything to the table. I think they want him to be that guy that's entertaining, but doesn't get over ever. They can use him to put on 5-10 minutes of dance segments or, all that kind of stuff that they seem to enjoy. Truth picks up the win here. the thing that I'm really upset about is Fandango, much like Daniel Bryan, and it's something that not a lot of people are talking about. He's getting tremendous reaction now, whether that be to his song or to him or whatever. The people are responding to something that's happening there on a grassroots level. He should be more entrenched in the United States picture, the Intercontinental title picture. We shouldn't be seeing Fandango versus random guys like R-Truth and Santino, just random match on Raw. He should have a feud that he's working in. Maybe someone should feud with him over Summer Rae. Maybe they bring in Tyson Kidd like they seem they were going to and have them build off the Total Diva feud over Natalya. I mean, there's a bunch of things they could do with this guy. He's a good worker in the ring. He's getting a solid reaction, but they're not doing anything with him. Much like Ziggler, much like Daniel Bryan. And that's where I get my mini Daniel Bryan comparison. But coming off of that, we're going to go into our question of the week. And it's kind of fitting. Who do you think is the most underused talent in the WWE? Now, before I get into my opinion, we have a couple from our friends. The first is from our friend Andre Corbeil. He says, Zack Ryder, he is the most underutilized. Even though I'm not a fan of his, I kind of feel sorry for a guy who was over and put on the shelf. To add to that, he's a guy that got over on his own and was buried after that, which I don't get. If you could get over, you could get over, period. Next is from our friend Paul over at the Deadly Sins. As far as least used, I gotta go with someone I haven't seen on Raw in a while, who I love in the ring, Tyson Kidd. Just mentioned him a minute ago. He is a great talent, very athletic, and always puts on a good match. I agree with both of those assessments. Two very good picks. Zack Ryder, a guy that the fans got behind, much like I said with Fandango, much like Dolph Ziggler, much like Daniel Bryan. Fans were behind him. They loved Z Hollywood, or Z True Hollywood Stories, whatever he called the show. I'm sorry if I'm not quoting it exactly right. He built his fan base on his own and seemed to be punished for doing so. And to me, that's just wrong. And he's a guy that could be used more, could be a guy that's a big talent. But they refuse to do that. Now, my opinion of someone that's very underused is a guy we mentioned a little bit earlier. And that is, well, not specifically, but we mentioned his team, the Real Americans, Antonio Cesaro. As evidenced by the reactions he's getting in the tag matches by himself, and, his team as well, Cesaro has the potential to be a breakout superstar and has had that potential for a while. Everything that they put him in, he rose above. He rose above his yodeling gimmick. He rose above his Uber American gimmick. He's rising above the Real Americans gimmick and becoming someone much like a Daniel Bryan was at one point. And I hate to keep using that comparison, but it's an easy one to make. He's becoming someone that no matter what you put him in, he's going to entertain. And I think he's somebody that should be broken off from the Real Americans. Nothing wrong with Jack Swagger. I think he's a good talent as well. However, I think Antonio Cesaro is a guy that should and can be in the main event picture, and they're underusing him in a tag team that they seem to not know if they're pushing or not. Another great example would be an actual tag team, the Primetime Players. I really enjoy the Primetime Players. I think they're a great team, but they're hardly ever even on TV anymore. And when they are, they're losing to someone like the Wyatt family or Shield or the Real Americans. They're not really being used to their potential. And speaking of potential, we're going to go into our question of the week for this week. And that is, recently I went to an NXT show. This is probably about my fourth or fifth one I've went to. They're starting to come to my local area more regularly, so I'm going to them a lot more. I watch them on Hulu Plus. The question is, do you guys watch NXT? Do you enjoy it? I'll let you know what I think of NXT next week. If you do watch it and you do enjoy it, or if you don't, let us know. Hit us up on our Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, put it down where? Down there in the comments. Now getting on to the good segments of the night. The first thing is we came out right on up front with Triple H and Stephanie addressing the Royal Rumble. I hate to say it, but it was funny what Triple H said about, oh, somebody didn't get what they wanted. Thought it was funny. Brings out Daniel Bryan, who furthers his cause, where they bring the Shield to sick him on him. He gets defended by friends Daniel Bryan, or Sheamus and John Cena, which sets up the six-man main event later, which the winners will go into the Elimination Chamber, all three. Good opening segment, good way to progress storylines, good way to attack the criticism that they were getting going into the show. Next up was a tag match I actually liked a lot more than I thought I was going to, and that was the Uso brothers versus Ryback and Curtis Axel. I like that they're using the Usos, and I think Usos are going to be the next tag champions. The continuation of the build was very enjoyable for me. Next up was another tag team match. I love tag team wrestling, guys. I'm sorry. We had the New Age Outlaws in a rematch with the Rhodes Brothers. Ends up being a schmoz because Brock Lesnar comes out and destroys the Rhodes Brothers basically for not getting the match that he asked for earlier. A couple things advanced on here. It takes the Rhodes Brothers away from the tag title pictures, maybe breaks them up with injuries. Builds Lesnar more as a monster like they did at Royal Rumble. Going into WrestleMania, and whoever he may be facing, he's going to look like a legitimate threat to beat them, whether it be for the streak or the championship or whatever else. Keeps the New Age Outlaws champions for a little bit longer, which I think is going to parlay into them dropping the belts to the Uso brothers. Now, another thing, and this was probably my absolute favorite part of the night, they introduced the second induction of the Hall of Fame this year, and that is Jake the Snake Roberts. Kudos to the WWE. About a year ago, me and Gary, when Gary was actually able to do the show more often, we put out a top 10 guys that weren't in the WWE Hall of Fame. And over the last 2 years, they've pretty much eliminated our list. They've eliminated San Martino, The Ultimate Warrior, Bob Backlund, Mick Foley, now Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, they've taken half our list off of it, and they haven't even announced the whole crew. So kudos to them for putting in a guy that's a no-brainer, should have been a Hall of Famer already. Probably if it wasn't for the drug issues would have been, to be honest. But they righted it wrong and did something that I enjoy. He's a guy that I grew up enjoying very much, and I hope that a lot of you people did as well. Coming off of that, we had our main event of the night, the six-man tag, Cena, Sheamus, and Daniel Bryan versus The Shield. The good guys win when the Wyatts come out to attack them, causing a disqualification. I'm not a fan of the schmoz, but it did a lot of things here. It gave us 3 competitors in the Elimination Chamber to go with Randy Orton, so we're up to 4. And it also set the seeds for a Shield versus Wyatt 6-man tag match, which everybody wants to see. I don't know any fan in America that watches WWE that doesn't think that that would be a great match. But all in all, an enjoyable show. We're going to go right into our ratings for this because we're running a little bit long. We have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Great Khali, 2's a Heath Slater, 3's a Randy Orton, 4's a CM Punk, 5's a Daniel Bryan. I'm going to give this one a 3, a Randy Orton. A lot of stuff that was really on that so-so margin on the night. Some really good stuff as well. Not so much bad, but overall in the grand scheme of things, a very unmemorable, I'm sorry folks, an unmemorable Monday Night Raw, and couple that with the bad taste left in our mouth from Royal Rumble. They could have easily put a better taste in our mouth, which they did a little bit. However, it's the show itself all fell flat to me. But basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.